Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today, let's see how to create this dynamic fire effect in Godot. This is perfect for any kind of effect that can react to movement and collisions. I also have another tutorial about static fire effects. In case you are interested, there's the link below. Both of these effects has its advantages and disadvantages. I like to combine both to create amazing things like a fireball. But in this tutorial, we will focus on the dynamic fire effect. For this, we will start creating a flame texture. Then, we will create a very simple shader that will be used to create the fire particle system. And at the end of this video, I will show you some secret techniques to modify this effect so we can create sparks or a flamethrower with collision. So, without further ado, let's get started. For this fire effect, we will need to create a simple flame texture. For this, you can use Photoshop or a GIMP or any painting software you want. This time, I will use Krita because it's great and it's free. Let's create a new image with a resolution of 1024 by 1024. Fill the background with a black color. Create a new layer. Pick the brush tool with a white color. You can adjust the brush size by holding Shift. And now, using the Curve tool, let's create a flame. It doesn't need to be exactly like this one. You can create your own custom flame as you want. Cool. Now I will fill this shape using the bucket tool. And let's go to filter and add a blur filter. With this, now we have a good base for the flame. Let's pick the airbrush and let's modify this a little bit. So press F5 to adjust the shape of the brush, like so. Also, let's go to opacity and set an opacity of 50%. Disable pen settings. Cool. Now, the trick is to set this brush to eraser mode by pressing E and quickly erase some parts of the flame. It is very simple. I am just using my mouse to do this. Okay, we can leave this as it is, but I would like this to look a quite more stylized. So I will go to Filter, select Morphological Filter, enable transparency, and apply. So that's it. Let's go ahead and export this image. I will name it Texture Flame 1. Okay, here we are in Godot, and I will go ahead and drag my texture. Let's import this to Godot. Cool. We will use that fire texture in a moment, but first let's go ahead and create a GPU particle system. Let's name it VFX Dynamic Fire. Okay. And in order for this particle to work, we need to create a new particle process material. Also, we need to assign a texture for this. In this case, I already have a texture over here, which is 1 pixel. It's just 1 pixel texture. I will leave the links in the description so you can use all these textures as well. Let's put this over here. And we can see this is really, really tiny. So let's go to the particle process material. Let's go to display, scale, and set a random scale between 50 and 100. Now let's also go to time and set the FPS to 60 FPS. Let's go to accelerations, gravity, set the gravity to 0. Let's go to spawn, velocity, and set a direction of 0, -1, and 0. Set a speed 0. And let's put a random velocity with a value between 80 and 180. Let's set a inherent velocity ratio of 0.2. With this, we can get a more interesting result when the particles are moving. Now let's go to angle and set a random angle between -90 degrees and 90 degrees. Let's go to particle flags and enable rotate Y. Okay, now it's time to bring the fire. In order to do that, we need to create a new shader. So let's go to material, create a new shader material, new shader, select visual shader, and let's name it erosion shader. Let's go ahead and open our erosion shader. Okay. So here we have the shader graph, but first let's go to flags and make sure to enable onShaded. So for these particles, I want to right click and create a texture 2D parameter. Let's name it dissolver texture. Set it to color and set it to be repetitive. And in order to use this texture, we need to sample it. Set it to color. Okay, because this is only a black and white texture, we don't need to use all the colors of this texture. We only need to use one channel. Okay, now if we go back to the particle system, in the material, here we can assign the texture. For now, I am going to pick this texture. And I want to grab this texture and create a smooth step node. With this smooth step, we can make the texture disappear. Let me show you. Let's preview the image. And by moving this edge value, we can make this texture like disappear. So in order to do this automatically, I am going to right click and take the color information of the particle system, and I will grab the alpha channel of the particles and connect it in the edge value. Also, I want this to be controlling the alpha transparency of the particles. Great. Let's go back to the particle system. Let's go to display, color curves, and let's create an alpha curve. So now, as you can see, if the value is 0, we can see the whole texture completed. And if the value is 1, you can see how the texture disappear. So I want this value to start in 0 and then go to 1. So we can get this interesting effect. Cool. Let's do some more changes. So let's go back to the shader editor. and I want to take this result and I will multiply this guy with our flame texture. So let's create another texture 2D parameter, and this will be the flame texture. And multiply this result with the flame texture. Let's go back to the particle system and let's assign our flame texture over here. Excellent. Now we only need to add some color to this and modify it a little bit. So let's go back to the shader editor, and for the color, I am going to grab the color of the particle system, and that's it. This is completed. So now let's go back to the particle process material, and let's go to color curves and create a new color ramp. Okay, here we can set the color of the fire at the beginning and at the end of the particles. So I want this fire to start with a really bright yellow color, and then it goes into a reddish color. So I want to play with these colors to see if I can get an interesting result. Let's see. Great, so I have been experimenting a while using some yellows and reds, and I got this interesting result. But this fire is too weak. We need more flames. So let's go up and set the amount to 60 flames. Okay, this is much, much better, but we can improve this even more. So let me go back to the material, and I don't like this dissolver texture, so I will delete this. And instead of using that texture, I will go ahead and create my own noise texture 2D. So here we can configure the texture. I will play a bit with these parameters to see if I can get an interesting result. Let's see. This is looking much, much better now, but it is still looking quite messy. And I think it is because of the flame texture. Maybe it is too hard. I will make another different flame texture. Give me a moment. Okay, I have created some new flame textures. I did the exact same steps I used for the flame texture, but this time I made them a quite more blurry and soft. Let's see how it looks. Oh, nice. This is definitely much better than the previous one. And that's basically it, guys. The dynamic fire is completed. And also, there are many things you can do with this shader as well. For example, in my video about 2D lightning effects, a lot of people ask me in the comments how to create this electric sparks effect. Well, you can create that effect using this same shader. Let's see. I will duplicate this dynamic fire. Let's change the name to electric sparks. And because this is a completely new particle process material, we need to right click, make unique, recursive, and do the same for the material. Right click, make unique. It's very important to do this, so Godot knows this new copy will be different. Now I want to modify this material. Instead of using these fire textures, I have created a special sparks textures, this one. So I will put this over here and over here. So I will go up to the particle system and set the amount to 12. Now let's go to the particle process material, spawn, and I want these particles to spawn into a sphere position with a radius of 70. And maybe this is too big, so let's go to scale and set a random scale between 20 and 100. Cool. This needs to go much faster, so let's set a lifetime of 0.3 seconds. And finally, let's change the color. Let's pick a nice yellow color. And there you go. Here we have these nice sparks. You can also make this to be crazy. If you go to the alpha curve and you modify this value, you can get some crazy results like this. But I will leave this as it is. Before ending this tutorial, I want to show you something else that maybe is really useful for your game. Here I have a dynamic fire effect. It's almost the same effect. I just give it some velocity and increase the particles a little bit. So anyways, it's very easy to make these particles collide. We only need to go to the particle process material, go to collision, and set this mode to rigid. Here we can set some parameters, for example, friction and a bounciness. And this is really useful, for example, for the water effect. If we want the water to bounce in walls, and enable use scale. Okay, now the fire can collide with objects. But how we can do that? Well, we only need to go ahead and create a light occluder 2D, and we need to create a polygon. So here, select this green icon over here and do a click. Oh, sorry. Do a click, 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 click. Cool. So here we have this triangle. And as you can see, this can collide with the fire, which is really cool. In case you want this to be transparent or anything, you only need to go to the material and create a new canvas item material and set the blend mode to add. So now it's transparent. So you can put like an object behind this, and this object now will have a collision with particles. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something cool today, and I will see you in the next video.